As far as the downtown interchange, we have 4 design options as well as a no further action option. We're working with with our study team to look at ways that we can minimize impacts. As you know, the Tampa Interstate study and the original Tampa Bay Express program had a very wide footprint for the downtown interchange. We've worked very, very hard to try to find ways to either eliminate or at least reduce those impacts. We have 2 alternatives that significantly reduce the impacts from the 150 to 200 parcel range that we had previously down into the 30 to 50 range. And of course, we'll continue to evaluate the no further action alternative. We currently have no funding for right-of-way or construction, nor do we have, is that really something that we're pursuing at this time. The project I wanted to talk to you today about a little bit more was the I-275 corridor north of Interstate 4. And as you may remember, one of the first things we did with the Tampa Bay Next program reset was we agreed to eliminate express lanes north of I-4 along I-275 and said we will work to not have any impacts to right-of-way along the main line. That was in response to public input. It was in response to the concerns that were expressed to us at a lot of our public meetings. However, we felt like we did need to do certain things north of there because it is the largest crash corridor in the district. We have over 1,500 crashes a year in the area, and we also have a lot of operational issues. I know that there's a concern about what this project that we're proposing could be, so today hopefully I can allay some of those concerns. First, I'll talk to the transition project. The transition project goes from Interstate 4 up to MLK because that's considered part of the SEIS that we're still working on, but that is a transition project. This will complete operational improvements to provide a transition to existing conditions to the project shown in the Section 7 PD&E limits, which I'll discuss in a second. Improvements include providing auxiliary lanes northbound at Florabraska Avenue to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and southbound at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard to the flyover ramp at Interstate 4. This section does not require right-of-way and will provide sound walls where feasible. The Section 7 PD&E study will add capacity along the corridor and will include 4 general purpose lanes in each direction, 15-foot wide inside shoulders which can accommodate transit if desired. Operational improvements will be implemented at the Hillsborough Avenue and Bears Avenue, will be implemented at the Hillsborough Avenue interchange, as well as the Bears Avenue bridge will be replaced along with some ramp improvements. Along the mainline I-275, the existing horizontal and vertical alignment will be maintained to avoid right-of-way impacts. All of the proposed improvements for mainline I-275 will take place within the existing right-of-way. At the Bears Avenue interchange, minimal right-of-way may be needed for stormwater ponds. This is just a graphic that shows kind of the improvements that will be part of the transition, and you can see a yellow there where we add the pavement in there. We know this won't solve the overall problem, but what it does do is it allows us to move some of the merge and weave areas around so that the traffic that in the turbulent areas where we see a lot of side swipe, lane diving, and those sort of things, we'll be able to take care of those and isolate those from the main flow of traffic. This is the preferred typical section for that area. As you can see, it's all within the existing right-of-way. We are adding sound walls along the whole way. We'll also be adding 1 general purpose lane in each direction and the shoulders. One of the other benefits to adding the shoulders is that as this is a primary evacuation route, those shoulders could be used during an evacuation as an additional lane. Some of the other things we're doing as part of this project, in addition to just the traffic improvements, is things such as pedestrian-friendly underpass improvements. This would allow us to do some much-needed improvements underneath the interstate to improve pedestrian safety and connectivity, as well as enhance aesthetics. This is something that we've heard a lot from the community as we've gone to public meetings. How do we improve those areas, both for functionality as well as aesthetics? Not all the interchange underpasses will receive the same improvements. Some are easier to do than others. But some of the things we're looking at is widening sidewalks, enhancing lighting, painting bridge substructures, cutting back the walls for improved pedestrian and bicycle experience. We could potentially include public art if we partnered with the city in some of those areas, as well as landscaping options. Here you can see just a graphic of what it could look like. And I think this was not the one we had. Is there another one in here? Yeah, this is a better one here, just to show you. You can see up there beforehand, you kind of have the slope wall. You got the sidewalk tucked in there behind the columns. What we're able to do is bring that all back and create more area we can use for things such as providing additional room, maybe 10-foot sidewalks and a path, things like that, as well as providing lighting to make it much more safe. In one of the recent Tampa Bay Next listening tours in West Tampa, actually, we heard that the underpasses of 275 were a safety concern. And so we're out there now putting in a lot of enhanced LED lightings underneath the overpasses. So if you go through there at night, I think Dale Mabry's already installed. Some of the other ones should be installed very soon. I think they'll all be done within a relatively short period. And of course, noise walls was one of the other things we heard from the community. They'd like for us to put noise walls up. And so as part of this project, we would be putting noise walls up along the entire corridor. In some cases, extending the existing walls, and some placing, adding in all new walls, as well as looking for landscape opportunities. And there's been a trend recently to move away from palm trees and more towards some of the hardwood trees. And so we'll be working with the community to see what kind of landscaping do we want. We won't have to necessarily just come in there and put in what we've always put in. We're very open to looking at alternatives, working with the community. One question I did hear asked earlier was about, what is the benefit of putting in this additional lane? Isn't there still going to be a lot of traffic there? Yeah, there's still going to be a lot of traffic there. But what we will find is that if you take, for instance, the northbound coming out of the I-4 interchange, right now that backs up significantly in the afternoon peak period, and it goes up all the way till you get probably past Hillsborough and further. This additional lane will flush that traffic out much quicker. So in the northbound direction, I think you'll see a much greater immediate benefit. In the southbound direction, in the future, one of the things I hope to be able to do in a not too distant future is to provide a second lane for the ramp from southbound I-275 to I-4, but that's going to take us getting through the SEIS and then figuring out how we can do that and what the impacts would be to right away. But what we can do is we can create an area where instead of having those lanes that you have the one lane going and the other lane basically is blocked by everybody trying to cut into traffic, we can isolate that over and bring those two lanes all the way up to the bridge. We may still have some backups, but we may be able to get rid of a significant number of those over 1,500 crashes a year that we're seeing in that area. And on induced demand, I get that. I understand there's a lot of theory behind that. I will say that, the real solution to induced demand is growth management and land use. Highways don't necessarily induce the demand without the land use. As long as we continue to get more demand, we're going to try to respond as best we can to that demand. But we also understand that working together, hopefully on land use and transportation, we can come up with better solutions. The I-275 North Corridor public hearing will be on March 26th at the Seminole Heights United Methodist Church. And so we'll be there to take public comment on that. With that, that's my Tampa Bay Next update, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Just a quick question that somebody asked about regarding the underpass improvements. Anything for the Martin Luther King 275 one coming up?
Do you know? I'm going to ask my picture. So that's the picture, I guess, that they had here was what it would look like.
Here at Osborne too.
This one here. Yeah. So, do you know what we are? I'm going to ask my staff here because they know more specifically each location a little better than I do.
This is just a concept. It's a little difficult to see what is different, but I can point it out to you. The sloped walls will not are cut back to widen the sidewalk. Can you see where they're cut back on the second slide? They're not cut back all the way to the end like at Hillsborough, but they're partially cut back. There are sound walls along the bridge as well, so you can see the barrier wall up there is higher than the picture on the left. and then the sidewalk areas are widened along the
So it
roadside.
looks like it's about maybe a 10-foot instead of a 5-foot sidewalk,
Right.
something like that. So
Do you have any anticipation date or anything when these changes would,
this project is partially funded now in 2023, so calendar year could start in 22. Not
Okay.
all the funding is there yet,
Okay.
but we'd probably start at the south end and move our way north if we got money.
and what about sound walls going north on 275?
Yeah,
Anything?
that would all be part of this project. Wherever this project extended to, the sound walls,
And it would go from where to where? From
Osborne.
it would start at I-4. There's already some
so it's
sound
going to go
walls.
all the way.
I-4 up to Bears, pretty much.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
Thank you. I really appreciate the work that you were trying to do here. It's a very challenging area because it's very tight. There's some bottlenecks in the highway system. The next slide actually shows what I would consider the best alternative when it comes to underpass. Osborne is scary, and it's right next to a school and a library, and is now, in the winter months, going underneath that area because there are sloped walls. The lighting is inadequate. It is having that more open arrangement not only is more aesthetically nice, but it also creates a better opportunity for safety. The sloped walls create a hiding place or a safe place for individuals that aren't able to find housing. And so the vertical walls tend to eliminate that as a place that can put people and them at risk. So where possible, specifically, if I'm not sure why Martin Luther King still has a sloped wall plan, but I'd love to see that sloped wall plan eliminated from any of our urban core underpasses, because it does create, unfortunately, a hazard to not only the residents that live there, but those that are traveling through. I do like the sidewalks. That's great. We do need them. But if the difference in the light that's able to go underneath the underpass on the vertical walls versus the sloped wall is significant. It makes a much different experience.